A very good afternoon to you and welcome to another exciting edition of your favorite business development program on radio, Masterclass. Masterclass is powered by Joy Business and brought to us by Goyle. Goyle, they say good energy. Goyle, Yenara, Yedia. Masterclass comes your way every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. and runs all the way through to 2:15 p.m. here on your superstation Joy 99.7. My name, as always, is Yaw Anim Barnafo, and I'll be your host for the show today. Last week, we started a different conversation on the subject of corporate governance, and we talked about leadership as part of that conversation. We had here with us in the studio Dr. Dumanyah, who took us through some introductory comments on corporate governance and leadership. Today, we're going into the area of corporate governance and finance, and we're going to be looking at the emphasis on financial decisions within the corporate governance setup. We're privileged to have Dr. Dumanyah back here in the studio with us. Doc, you're welcome back to the conversation.
Thank you.
Last week, we couldn't sort of finish all of the content that we had because there was so much to share and there was so much interaction when we got interactive. But hopefully we'll do a quick recap today, and then we'll go straight to the conversation today about corporate governance and finance. Corporate governance is one of those topics that we can never seem to exhaust, and whenever you start it, you always come up with different scenarios and different examples of what the best practice should be. I think what makes it even more exciting is that we're looking at what should be as guided by the New Companies Act and what really exists in other people's establishments and their companies, because it's work in progress for most people. At different stages of their development, different forms or models of corporate governance exists. I remember you were talking about the fact that in a small company that's within 1 to 2 years, the finance director would most probably also be the admin director, would also most probably be the head of human resources. Yeah. But at some point when you're 5 years and you're churning certain volumes of revenue, then you need to sort of begin to split those roles for emphasis, and because the size of the company has grown. Finance is always a key part of every conversation. You can never run any institution, no matter what your purpose is. Thompson Chua will say, what is the value proposition? Good afternoon to you, Thompson. But no matter what your value proposition is and why you set up your business, finance is always the lifeblood of whatever you're doing, because unless it's a charity, if you're existing to make revenue or to make profit, then finance is key. And the financial decisions that you make are also important. Share with us some thoughts today on the issue of finance and corporate governance and where the lines of responsibility and best practice should lie, if you wish. I mean, if you've just also tuned in, this is Masterclass here on the Superstation, Joy 99.7. We're also streaming live on Facebook. And again, Dr. Dumanyah has obliged us with some slides for those of us who like to take notes. So we'll also be streaming and projecting those slides as we go along. Doc, please talk to us.
Thank you, Yaw, and good afternoon to our viewers. Before I start, I want to recap, like Yaw said, a few things or highlights or take-homes that we discussed last week. The first thing is that corporate governance and leadership issues ought to be the priority of every business person, every country. And it's something that we Africans, as a people, we must look to help us develop our businesses. Otherwise, the numerous conferences and all committees, government changing of this and that, and even selling state-owned enterprises will be useless. This is because Africa has some kind of deep-seated corporate governance problems that require collective actions from our homes, our schools, our communities, our districts. There are 3 things that we have to also know that every business is made up of. The first one is that it has its people, the personalities involved, which is a reflection of the company. The second one is the profession, the skill sets, and that's what I'm going to highlight, like Yaw said from the beginning. The skill set is also very important in this direction. And the third one is the enterprise. And in structuring all these things, you must look at all these spheres. And let me preempt it that next week we are going to talk about corporate governance and the core competencies of entrepreneurs. That is the subject that we'll be talking about. And with that, I'll try to share a few thoughts on that. So we also said last week that effective leadership takes personal interest in the long-term development of its employees. And they use tact and social skills to encourage employees to achieve their best. So if you're a leader, like we said, like, it's not the nice thing you know. I have friends that anytime it comes to business, it's business. When we go outside the business, we can smile. But business is business. Sometimes they don't understand. They think that you are faces. So last week, we concluded by saying that, look, if we practice corporate governance very well, we create system of rules and practices. Our business become ethical. We don't cut corners. and then it leads to financial viability. And then we can also preserve and strengthen stakeholders' confidence. There are people who have money they want to invest to the next phase of the business, but because they don't have confidence in the business, they will not say it because they have equity. But once we practice it and everything is transparent, remember last week we talked about the characteristics, then it gives them some kind of confidence. And the last one that we talk about is that it provides a foundation of high-performing organization. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk about corporate governance, like Yaw said, and finance. And I will start by trying to define certain terms that is a bit misleading. The first one is the word finance. Finance in the broad term represents oversight, creation, study of money, management, banking, credit, investments, assets, liabilities, the processes of acquiring funds. But you cannot take that one away the concept of macro and microeconomics. And this is where corporate governance comes in. We are in this country where people say, I am finance director, but he doesn't have any economics in him. You can never be a finance director without economics. It's very, very important. So we see that we put accountants as a finance people. And accountants, by their nature, they are professionals who perform financial analysis. They are back office kind of thing. But of course, I'm not saying that if you're an accountant, you cannot do finance. If you learn a lot more economics in addition to your accounting, then you become a finance person. It's very, very important.
Because finance, the umbrella of finance encompasses economics.
Thank you. And one of the things that also fun, I'm saying here that about 80 to 85% of the people who work at the bank are not bankers.
True.
They are banking officers.
True.
Some people parade themselves that they are bankers. They have not even gotten any certificate to show
that they haven't done the CIB.
No, they have not.
True.
So then you see a banker also saying that I'm a finance person. Because the definition of a banker is different from finance. And the interesting thing is that some people also call them their investment bankers. Maybe they were registrars at the No, you register, you collect the date. I know a top man in this country in a high position who was a registrar in the Wall Street. But he comes here and they give him the accolade as an investment banker. You see, where the banks ends, that's where investment bank activity starts. And the serious problem we have in this country is that if you be called an investment banker, you go to the stock exchange and write that exam. But that's just an aspect of the wider conversation that we have to have. And the reason why we should be concerned about this is that people's skills, actions, and inaction reflect the working of a system of every business or every economy. Otherwise, we'll be putting a round peg in a square hole. And that is what we are doing here. Your corporate governance element should help you to know what kind of skill set I need for this job and who should qualify. And once you understand that in your interview, you look for certain characteristics. Remember, I started by saying that, look, you have to know the personality, you have to know the profession, and you have to know the enterprise. All these three must feed into the kind of things that. And like I said, you will see a finance director who doesn't even know the differences between economics and economy. We cannot suffice when we continue like this. But when we structure our corporate governance very well and we know who does what, then it is easy for us to know who should fit what kind of cap or hat. So the lack of financial system as a result of non-practicing of corporate governance.
Let me just ask a quick question on the back of the comment you just made.
Okay.
For, let's say, the chairman of a board,
yeah,
who probably has utmost responsibility for the function of corporate governance within his institution or his area of responsibility, yeah, where should he look to? Should he look to benchmark data, or should he look to professional bodies? Where would such a person look to for guidance on ensuring that we don't put square pegs in round holes?
Okay, so even when you say the chairman of God, there are two things we have to look here.
Right.
The first one is that executive chairman or just a chairman. If it's executive chairman, then that function comes in.
Right.
It's part of the operational setup of the company. Then he has the responsibility to fall on people with the expertise to be able to advise him. If you're a chairman, you don't. But if you are just what do you call a role executive chairman, then yours is, by the definition, you come out with the vision, and then you let your management team implement.
Take it and run with it, right?
But you know, it's even reverse here. Sometimes it's the management that propose who should sit on the board.
In some circumstances, yes.
Not in all circumstances, especially in the private businesses.
Right.
Because he has his money, he established something, and then he's asking you, oh,
put this person on the board, put that person.
And I've seen people, they ask you to restructure companies that have restructured before. Some private universities. And the topmost people they are business schools, and we have music professors on it. I'm not saying music professors are no good. But remember I said...
But what do you bring to the table? That's the point you are making.
Exactly.
First of all, let me put it this way. What does a company or institution exist to do? What's the purpose? Where are they going? What's the vision? And then the people you put on the board must be able to contribute to that process. So the question you ask is, what do you bring to the table?
Nothing.
And I guess that's the point that you're making.
And these are some of the things I suggest that something like Ghana Treasury, they should look at some of these things. Because you sit in certain boards and there's no substance. There's no substance at all. And it all because we don't take our corporate governance as and like you are right to say from the beginning that, you see, finance is the engine, it's the oil that will let the tires flow. And I think we are saddened with most of the things. We just look at things. And you see, once it's crooked, it will hit you. So you see, when you are calculating, you want to know autocorrelation and all those factors, and you have non-stationary, they will say take a log of that. The point, or by principle, finance is a straight line. So whenever you are doing something and the story is becoming, and are you going for credit loan or something, the story is becoming crooked, then it means there is a problem.
I had someone make the same statement in a different way once. He says that finance, like life, is a zero-sum game. So once you shift something from somewhere, there's going to be a vacuum created somewhere, and something must give at some point. And that's the point you're making, that if it's crooked, there will be... Over time.
Because the ripple effect will be seen. So like we are talking about the hardship, and these are not decisions we took last. The challenge again, because we don't want to observe, is that running business is not a static. It's dynamic. And it should be in such a way, the process must be in such a way that it will fit into the ecosystem. In the same way of running the economy. If you think that it's like you put the ball, the penalty, you score. No. There must be partners. There must be collaborators. And those collaborators must work to fit into the ecosystem that you operate in.
And it's not just fit into it. It must also be relevant to the changing context, which is the environment. And that's the point that you made earlier, that the context is changing, the purpose is changing, everything is changing. So you must keep up. Otherwise, then you become obsolete.
Fantastic. So you see, even biologically, we are saying that genes plus your genes plus the environment will form your phenotype. Isn't it? So the environment is what we are talking about. So even in business, when we are doing our SWOT analysis, we also do pestle. So no matter how smart, how good, and you are in a business in a particular area, and the environment is poison, you cannot go far. So both the environment and your business must coexist.
That's true.
And there must be a reflection. Whatever businesses. So you see, if you are doing analysis, technical and those things, we look at the aspect of your business, isn't it? And then we look at the aspect of the industry. And that is where we keep on emphasizing that corporate governance is very important. Now, the question is, what is the way forward? Sometimes we'll get sad, we'll do this, but the question, what is the way forward? Now, in the developed countries, they have changed the style. They are talking about environmental, social, and governance. By environmental means that those of us who have done a bit of linear programming, you say the Z is equal to independent variable 1, 2, 3, if you have 50 of them, subject to the constraint. And it is important for us to understand that what are we subject, what are the constraints that we have at this moment? The constraints is what the ESG is guiding us. Environmental issues, we say climate change, to what extent Ghana or the businesses. The air, biodiversity, deforestation. We want to create a business. Remember, to create a business to There are two words in economics that are very important: needs and wants. Because if you have a business and there's no need, that you can't create that business as an entrepreneur. If you have a business and there is no want, you can't create business as an entrepreneur.
There'll be no demand for.
Yes. So needs and wants are critical also. Yeah. In the same way, if you're a country and people cannot consume, you will be experiencing what we are experiencing at the moment. Because we call something secular income flow. And that observation must be clear. So ESG look at the social aspect, data protection, gender, community relations, human rights, etc. And then the governance is what we just discussed: board composition, audit committee structure. In fact, the governance include bribery and corruption. And whilst before we came on, we were just discussing the difficulty in that aspect of this part. I'm not saying it's not, but the nature and the extent at which bribery and corruption perceived in Africa is a little bit worrying. And some of the things that...
It's actually very worrying.
Well, and then we also have political contributions and also other things that... And currently, that is what investors are looking for. For you to be able to put money into business, you must look at all these factors.
There was a question that just came to my mind when you were talking about the environmental factors, the climate change and all of those things, waste management, efficiency. They speak to a new, should I say, narrative. It's not new, it's actually been there, but I think it's stronger today: sustainability.
Yes.
Now, that has become key and almost prerequisite to accessing funding for most businesses today, small, medium scale. Now, when you're looking for money anywhere, at some point of your process, this thing comes up about sustainability.
Yeah.
So it's affecting access to funding. Do you think that at some point it will go beyond that and also begin to affect access to markets, consumer markets, so that if you produce something, people are going to look at, in order to give you access into a certain market, they're going to say, have you ticked all your sustainability boxes? Where is this thing coming from? What was the cost of production and all of that?
Right.
Maybe you can just share some.
No, it's important now. You realize that there is even a German institution called Alliance for Product Quality. And the essence of this company is trying to help people in the this part of the world to improve upon. Because there are certain products that when we send, they don't qualify. The standards are not there. Again, we have AGOA and all those things, but yet I don't know what happened because of quality, etc. Now, people, and we even have problems with cocoa. Remember, there was an issue that labor, child labor, because of that, some group are saying that we don't want to. Exactly. So we're already there. We're already there. And that is the new paradigm shift we must start talking about. All the tools we are using currently in Africa or in Ghana are things that has passed. I think last week I also said that anything 3 years old, COVID has defied a lot of things. And we must rethink the way and the procedures that we take. So those of us who are running business, we must continue to learn and relearn. If you don't learn and relearn and unlearn some of the things, if we don't do that, we will still be in our situation. One time I met one of the chiefs in Kwo, and I put this question. I said, look, Kwo people are very good in commerce, but why are they not global? Have you thought of that? It's very important, because if we try to shape, they learn, unlearn, and relearn, they will capture the entire world.
Is that Adam Toffler, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will capture the entire world. And the bane of all these things is the fact that we must try to educate ourselves on systems, patterns. And that definition is what we are saying today as corporate governance.
What would you say the learnings are from, I mean, I'm asking these questions just to shape the conversation, but what would you say the learnings are from, and benchmark information is always great because that's what data does. Yeah. What would you say the learnings are from, let's even say the sub-region and Africa as a whole, before we even go to Europe, on best practice corporate governance, where the conversation on sustainability is concerned? What are some of the things that a 1 to 3 year company or let's say a 3 to 5 year company can begin to do at their level on this conversation on sustainability?
Is it the first?
Because I'm sure people look at it and they think, listen, it's too far away from me. It's for the big players, it's for the big boys. But there are little things we can do even at at our level to be able to help that conversation as entrepreneurs, as young businesses.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that, if you can just shed some light on?
I think the first thing that we have to consider is that what is our net worth? It's very important for every business. What net worth are you going to create? Now, the net worth there is just to say that your assets and liabilities. In other words, your strengths and weaknesses. What is it that you are bringing on board?
Yeah.
Because if you don't take care, like I said, needs and wants, and there's nobody in terms of market, you produce, but you will not go anywhere. So no matter how small or big, and the last week we also mentioned that it is right from the beginning. Once you get the vision and the mission, you must also know what kind of structure you put in place. Because you see, we have Tico, isn't it? We have buses, we have this. They are all transports. So which of them, or the nature, or the business, the kind of form that you have to. Once you get that, then you look at the personnel that you require to be able to do that. Again, it comes back to the principles that I've said. Those principles are to guide you. So personality in terms of leadership, like we talk about, I'm restructuring a financial services. And I was looking for somebody to run. The first guy who came for the interview, he was good, he's knowledgeable. But again, he's like, sit like this and nothing well. So I decided not to, because I'm looking for certain level of temperament. And once I get those temperament, then I'll look at the professional aspect. Is he an accountant? Is he a banker? What is his background? And then the third one, that would dovetail into the enterprise. What is it the business or the company is going to achieve? And all these three steps must consider the tenets of corporate governance. Who leads what? Who is going to chair? Am I taking a music professor to become the chair of a microfinance institution or whatever? Or I would take somebody with understanding, with a little bit business and has experience on that aspect to be able to run. Again, I'm not saying that you should be academician. No. We are talking about practical things here. So that by virtue of seeing certain records, he knows the risks that we are going into. So these are things, small things that as a beginner, as an entrepreneur, as a first start, even when you are dreaming about your business, you should be able to look at them and start with them.
You noticed I was smiling when you were making the last point, because you put your preference selection criteria in a certain order.
Yeah.
And you talked about temperament.
Yeah.
And then you talked about professional competency.
Yeah.
And then you talked about the third criteria. Is that to suggest, as a guide for my business owners who are listening, that, oftentimes we hear people say attitude is everything.
Yeah.
Your heart is what tells us whether you'll do it or not. So if I can use attitude as a simile for the first selection point you just made, what is a place of attitude? If attitude is equal to temperament in this conversation, somebody who's hungry, who's got fire in their belly to try and deliver something, that's what you were looking for when you were hiring.
Yeah.
What is a place of attitude before we look at professional competence, before we look at all those other...
I think the place of attitude should be number one. That's why I always place the people. Last week when we also said something very interesting, we are saying that people, purpose, processes, and performance. Yesterday we were discussing something and I said this and the person said no. I said that whatever is happening to the business is a reflection of the people.
True.
Yes. So if the people don't want to work, the business will be in that form. If the people are hardworking, the business will be. Here, it doesn't really matter the professional skills.
I get what you mean.
It doesn't really matter. It's the attitude towards the business. Because you'll be highly skilled and you will not go to work early. You'll be highly skilled and then your customer can say, clear off. And for that one, you will not get...
Your issue resolution is bad. Your customer interaction is not on point.
Yeah. So
you don't take feedback.
Attitude is important. But the challenge we have here is that we are trained as Africans or as Ghanaians to be in white-collar jobs. majority of the people, and we'll discuss that next week, are not entrepreneurs. They are necessity or opportunity entrepreneurs. The reason is that I finished school, I didn't have any work, so I decided to venture. So you realize that what that they are doing is that give me plenty money before I move. But that is not what entrepreneurs are. I mentor a lot of people, and I'm seeing that trend. He comes to you because I didn't have money, I cannot read. I have a friend, I'm sure she's listening. And I kept on fighting her. I said, look, you don't need this quantum, innovation and creativity, information seeking and initiative.
Create something out of nothing.
Exactly. That is entrepreneur. So if otherwise, then I'll call you a manager. For a manager, the setup is given to you for you to fit in the boss and make the system run. So if you call yourself entrepreneur and you think that unless somebody give you a large sums of money before, I created businesses, 3 of them, with nothing. I didn't even start with money. But at least I was able to create something in the region of 100 million Ghana.
You know, it brings my mind to an example of a video I saw last week about a certain very simple business model. And I hope I remember it right. So the person talks about real estate, and how they started. And they had no money, actually. So they go to person A and they say, this thing is valued at X. If you give me this money, I will give you this percentage on top of it. They get the money over this period. They go and get the first one. And before they got it, they had already gone to the third person to say, I'm going to sell you this for this, and you can do. So there's a scheme. By the time it was done, he owned about 10 houses. He had paid back what he owed with interest, and now the rest of the property he had acquired had now become his.
So interestingly,
I wish I could remember that.
It's an interesting example. You know the reason why I like it? I like it because the guy was able to do because he followed certain sequence.
He leveraged on.
In Ghana, give money to somebody. Those times, a few years ago, I said 95% of the people who walk to my office for money, they are not ready to pay back. It's a free money. And why should you run your company free? You are running a company to make money.
Of course.
And you want everything free from government, free from this, free from... It's not possible.
But the data...
the
data is even there. I mean, those who borrow from must look any different.
No, they will not pay. I know.
How many of them pay
back?
No,
they will not pay. Because it's a bicycle.
Yeah.
But they have forgotten that a bicycle, you are taking a bicycle. Let me give you a big scenario. If indeed what the minority are saying is true, about 22 point something. Now, technically, 1% of population, adult population, should be able to make this country successful. Now, if we have 30.8 million, let's say 50% are adult, 1% of them are 150,000. Now, divide that by the so-called alleged 22 point something million. It means roughly these 150,000 people will get about 148 million Ghana cedis. Put a corporate governance in place. Hold their hands. What will happen in the 5 years? The same model the Chinese premier did. He was trying to create 200 billionaires. And he did how much? 648 or 843. Look at now, check the latest billionaires in this country. It's because that they follow. So when Obama was here, he was saying, oh, let institutions be strong. He's not saying anything extraordinary. He's saying that practice corporate governance.
I'm sure the corporate governance guys will be excited.
No, that is a fact.
Yeah. So
we don't need IMF, believe me. And I'm saying here on record, if they give the country to me, and they allow, not politics, in 6 months we should turn around the country.
Very good points there. If you just this is Masterclass here on the Superstation. I'm here with Dr. Dumanyah. We're talking about corporate governance and leadership and finance. Today we're focusing on finance. Very interesting conversation here. We want you to be a part of it, but we'll get interactive right after we take a quick break right now.
Your favorite on-air business development program, Joy Business Masterclass, is in session, and you can interact with us on Facebook via the Joy 99.7 FM or Joy Business pages. If you tweet, the handle is at Joy 997 FM or at Joy Business GH. Don't forget to hashtag JB Masterclass. You can also call us on 0302 216541 or send your questions and contributions through to the WhatsApp number 0551 111997, and our facilitators will address your concerns. Attention everyone, class is in progress.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, this is Masterclass here on your superstation Joy 99.7. We're interactive right now. Numbers to call 0302 216 541, or you can also call us on 055 11997. That's 0302 216 541. Or you can also call us or send us a message on 055 11997. If you have any motor vehicle of any kind, GOIL has some wonderful news for you. GOIL, your oil marketing company of choice, keeps making life ever so convenient. GOIL now accepts Momo for all fuel purchases at key selected stations. Just remember to Momo it to GOIL. That's not all. You can also use your bank card to buy fuel at GOIL, and this is made possible by APSA. GOIL, good energy. GOIL, Yenara, Yedia. We're interactive right now. Pick up that phone, give us a call. Corporate governance and finance, or corporate governance and leadership. What's your experience in your institution? We've been here in the studio talking to Dr. Dumanyah, who's sharing some wonderful and very fond and spirited thoughts with us. Numbers to call 0302 216 541. You can also call us on 055 11997. Doc, you were making a point earlier before my first caller comes through. And I think it's a very strong point that you make, that the blueprint is there, it's available, it's been done by other people. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Not at all.
But do you think that sometimes the difficulty... I have a caller on the line. Good afternoon, you're welcome to Masterclass. Your name and where you're calling from.
Afternoon, my name is Lav, calling from Abelinkwe.
Good afternoon, Lav. How is Abelinkwe this afternoon?
Lav.
Okay, talk to me, Lav.
Yeah. Okay, today we are really enjoying the corporate governance and the lesson that we are getting. But it looked like our letter said that if they give him the Ghana, he can turn around in 6 months. That's the good news. But what people are he going to put in position to help him with that free heart he has to help the Ghana? Because this time around, anybody you give anything to do, they try to make themselves first before the vision. This is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling. Before Doc comes in, though, I suppose that's the point that we're making, that it's not about individuals, but it's about all of us. You see what I mean? So we should all have that mindset that says we can make it work. And he's referring to the examples of China and other places. It's been done. There's a blueprint. So if we all have the right mindset and we all want to make it work, you know, one of the most basic human instincts is self-preservation. Yeah. Have you realized that in all of these corruption things that we do at various levels, you never do it when it comes to your family? Think about it. When it comes to your family, your nuclear family, your wife and children you are responsible for, you don't do it to them. So at some point, you know, the good old book says that, the Bible says, where your heart is, there your treasure will also be. So we need a rethink, like he's saying, and Adam Toffler talked about it. We need to unlearn certain things and stop thinking it's for the next person. It's for all of us. Yeah. So if we all begin to think right about it, then Doc will not have a problem on who to put there. Love, I'm sure you'll be the first person that he will appoint. But it's about rethinking our entire processes and our minds. But Doc, maybe you also want to...
Yeah, Love, thank you. I said that there are 3 sequences: the people, the professional, and the...
Doc, please hold on to that thought for me. I've got another caller. We'll talk about Love's response, but... there's another caller. Good afternoon. You're welcome to Masterclass.
Hello,
your name and where you're calling
from. Good afternoon, Joy FM. My contribution to the lecture.
Sorry, I didn't get your name and where you're calling from, sir.
Oh, my name is Francis. I'm calling from Japan.
Thank you, Francis. Talk to me.
Yeah, I think you should continue to emphasize, with regards to corporate governance, the structure of our boards, and then the type of people who are placed there with regards to the knowledge and the ideas about the board they are supposed to govern or help. It looks as if there's so much political considerations when the members of boards are being selected. And so their concentration on the achievement, what they can do to turn over the board's objectives and vision, and their missions and vision is very limited. In most cases, continue to hammer for corporate governance is a very important area to emphasize structure and the composition of our boards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Francis. That was Francis from Japan. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. Doc, do you want to react to Lav quickly?
Yes, so Lav, I said that people, professionals, and then enterprise. So that's how I'm going to look at it. And I agree with Yaw. He says that, well, you have to get people with like-minded. They say, how can two people work together unless they agree? So that's the principle that I'll use. Now, let me respond quickly to Francis.
Francis, yes.
You see, probably, this is my personal view, we need to change the constitution somehow. Because, you see, the political parties kind of take the president hostage. The reason is that president is coming from. But once you become a president, you are for all of us. So you see that once somebody becomes a president, his party becomes much more powerful. But we must find a way to link it so that president with his good mind, with the principles that he campaigned, the people who voted for him, will not be like, I have to do something to please the party to win the next power. Once we link those principles, I think we are good to go.
Right. Do I have another caller on the line? Okay. Right. Numbers to call again, 0302-216-541. Pick up that phone, give us a call. We're talking about corporate governance. What is the structure of governance in your institution? We're talking about the composition of boards. We haven't even gone into the liabilities and vicarious liability. We're talking about competence. And I think it's key. What is the composition of the board that you have? Did you put together your brother-in-law, your mother, somebody just because the company belongs to you? Because we're talking about what do they bring to the table. First of all, what is it that the company is set up for? What are you doing? Where are you going? The people you are bringing on board must be able to contribute, But Doc, while we're waiting for the phone lines to ring, let me ask this question. At some point, does the membership of boards, I know that there's a cycle that looks at changing members periodically. Must the change take into cognizance the changing dynamics of the environment also?
Precisely.
I have a caller on the line. Okay, good afternoon. You're welcome to Masterclass. Your name and where you're calling from.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, my name is Salifu.
Right,
Salifu. From Koforidua.
Good afternoon, Salifu from Koforidua. How is Koforidua this afternoon, Salifu?
Not so bad. We are enjoying the weather.
Great. Talk to me, Salifu.
Yeah, I've been listening to the Masterclass program. And today, what the resource person is saying, it means we have a long way in Ghana to go. And I want to find out, how is he going to impact the young ones? Now that we have free education, the courses that they are doing is not geared to what he has for the future. So, how is he going to impact in the various schools so that people will learn the corporate governance and the other professions? Especially as he's saying, it looks as if everything you must have economics knowledge. Otherwise, our country will not go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Salifu. Very, very profound thoughts there. He will share his thoughts on how he thinks we can do it. But before he does that, it's not just him, it's all of us. So the question should be, how are we going to do it? And we can only do it when we keep talking about it enough to the point where changes will begin to occur. That's what I think we should begin to do. Doc will react to that, but I have another caller on the line. Good afternoon. You're welcome to Masterclass. Your name and where you're calling from.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Your name and where you're calling from.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I agree with what the man is saying.
Sorry, I didn't get your name, sir.
Ebo.
Ebo, you're calling us from?
Spintex.
From Spintex. Ebo from Spintex.
Yes.
Talk to us.
I agree with what the man is saying. If we get radio stations like 5 only in this nation who are like Joy, we will mobilize the mind of the people. Now, you see, discerning listeners listen to Joy FM. So if we get just 5 radio stations, individual stations that behave and do things like Joy, we will change the mind of the people. Because if success will come, it depends on the head. So what the man is saying, when we change the constitution and everything, the question is, why do politicians rush to go to the seat? Even they don't care to even kill to go to the seat because of the constitution. It favors them so much, and the people suffer. So that is why they are not able to change the constitution. So when we get people like this, okay, I agree with him. You agree with him, right? Do you agree with him?
I agree with him. Yes, I do.
So you get people like this kind of mind to agree with such mind, and then we change this nation. Are you getting what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So I agree with the man, but it is going to be very hard because the Bible even says if you want to do the right thing, you will suffer persecution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling us. Quick reaction to that, and then I think
I think in the case of the Constitution that you mentioned before, the Constitution is over 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I said that anything that is 3 years older or 5 years older is obsolete. So even 3 years, because you see, like you asked the question, the dynamics are different. There's a continuously changing world. And the changing world, we must be able to do things to fit into the ecosystem. You see, so we need to look at some of these things, and because we are living, you cannot say that the same strategy tactics when you were 2 years, you are going to use that when you get married or when you are working. It will not work. If that will not work, then we have to look at some of the things that we do. The first person is asking. Already, I'm a member of Distinguished Scholars of Africa. As I speak, my president is in WBM Day Secondary School in Achimtafo. We are doing a program called iLegal. And what we are trying to do is to tell the secondary school their left and right as to what to do. We also mentor a number of businesses. Free, we don't take money. It's just like our small things that we do to let people understand that there is a way to do things better than we are doing or we are used to so many years ago. I also teach. You can ask my students. I really try to share my experiences. I'm a practical person. All these things that I'm saying, I've experienced them. I know what is a failure and what is success. I know what is money and what is poverty. I know how you can become a farmer and how you can become an investment banker.
You have learned how to be abased and how to abound. You know, Salifu from Kofredia made a point that I think he's come to the realization suddenly that we have a long way to go. Salifu, don't despair. You see, because we are talking about it and you are hearing it, someone else is also talking about it, and there's a lot of effort. Richard Osei Anim, good afternoon to you if you're listening. He also came here, we're talking about the new way of work. There are a lot of people talking about new things. If you watch TEDx, you watch the YouTube on the internet, there's a lot of effort gradually starting on the new way of looking at things. And gradually it will come to a head. At some point, it will begin to affect you. Hitherto, you will not hear a conversation like this. About 6 years ago, you will hear a conversation like this. You will only read it on some Deutsche Welle television or something like that. But now it's coming. And so we have passed the baton to you today. Carry that fire, infect somebody else. And let's begin to affect. We cannot get up and change the curriculum suddenly.
No.
But when we talk about it long enough, the people around us will be affected enough to begin to want to make the changes. Look, I think this conversation has been. I'm happy that you are back next week anyway.
Yes, I'm back next week.
But what's our takeout from our conversation today? And we can quickly introduce our conversation for next week as well.
All right. So before I go, once again I want to thank my boss.
Yes.
When I say my boss, is from Commodities Investments Ghana, Constance. I think he made this possible.
Right.
He has a sleepless night on this as to how we can take this conversation to other levels, and I'm sure he's working on the ground too. So, Constance, keep the good work.
Thank you very much, Constance.
And then I also want to thank Dominion University College. I'm with them at the moment, because I do consultancy, I do that, and I know my chairman and the president are listening. And it's interesting that these are the kind of things we are coming to establish for the graduate school. We want to do more of leadership, and I think the chairman is passionate on that.
About it.
On that note, I want to say that once again, we are trying to demonstrate that corporate governance is essential in our day-to-day life. Corporate governance in financial management is necessary for ensuring clear rules and responsibilities for your team, segregation of duties, and tight internal controls that can stand up to the test of time. So to allow organizations and countries to identify risks ahead of time, it is important to look at some of these things that we do. And that's why taking corporate governance seriously is something that we need to consider, even in our financial undertakings. And the current trend or the current paradigm shift is the ESG. If you don't know, we are available to help institutions and companies and governments. Because you see, once you're able to do that, as investment banker, I should be able to raise funds for you on the basis of that. Because people will be interested in doing that. And it's not like we are always interested in criticizing. We also want to say the way it is. Because other people have done it and they are being successful. And I always say this. When you go to Mauritius, what is there? It can take you 1 hour, 20 minutes to drive from south to north. But when it comes to financial things, so one, they find their position, their vision, their mission, and they position themselves in the global ecosystem, and that is why they are now enjoying the benefit. It doesn't take one day to do that. The ripple effects will take, in finance, it will take 4 to 5 years to see what you are seeing. So let us all come on board and see. And I'm sure there are institutions like Joy FM and other organizations that once we get them, they should be able to help us or support us to grow our business.
What are we looking forward to in our conversation next week?
Next week, we'll look at corporate governance and the core competencies of entrepreneur. I will try to talk about 10 core competencies and what corporate governance says about them, so that people who are starting businesses as entrepreneurs will see if they can practice those ones.
Thank you so much. Dr. Dumanyah has been with us and shared some wonderful thoughts on us. Next week, by God's grace, we'll come your way again with another exciting edition of Masterclass. Thank you for staying with us, and see you same time next week.